Hi everyone, it's William. I just finished doing the video for the 1907 diary entries today, the 1917 diary entry, and I would urge you, if you haven't done so, to watch that one, either before or after you watch this one. You could stop and watch that one, or you could watch it afterward, or you could not watch it at all. This is troubling. But anyway, I will just say that the two of them really go together in a surprising way, considering that they were written 13 years apart, one by a boy and one by a man of almost 30. They still have a very interesting continuity. So this is one of the last. Is it the last? We're up to page 68 with this one. And the long diary entry will conclude on page 72. So we're very close to the end. This is not the last, but we're closing in on it. And after that, we are going to jump ahead because we've already done the daily diary entries going from the 15th to the 22nd. We did those. And then when I came to the 23rd and I found out that I didn't have a translation of that and that I hadn't digitized it yet, I stopped there and we went all the way back to the 1st of January. And Dimitri had met Coco on the 22nd, so we're going to start with the 23rd after we're finished with this long diary entry. All right, and so in yesterday's section of this diary entry, Dimitri was clearly depressed and telling us that he simply was sick to death of living without a family life. Seeing his sister on a daily basis, yeah, that's not enough. He wants his own family. He wants to start that part of his life. He's almost 30. But he's got this big conflict, this big inner and possibly outer conflict that has to do with what kind of woman he should marry and whether he's free to choose whomever he likes. So let's dive into that. And what will happen then? And how will it affect the future? Because I'm not at all likely to find a princess bride for myself. Russian public opinion will have to take into account the fact that my marriage will be morganatic. And in that case, I won't be in a better position than Misha or now, let's say, Boris, even if my bride comes from another class and position. So I entirely acknowledge that the marriage question is, for me, extremely painful. But on the other hand, I have a feeling that if Russia really wants me, she will take me, whether I'm married or not, providing that my future wife will be of a good family. And if that casts a shadow on me, then I'll nonetheless be at peace. Naturally, the question of finances plays a role of no small importance in the question of my marriage, because if my wife doesn't have a groschen, our situation will be frightfully difficult. Yes, even painful. There's simply no way I can do it. But my God, what wouldn't I give to see it really happen? It's only the question of Maria that really distresses me. It would, of course, be horrifically painful for her, but she probably wouldn't say anything to me about it. So he's taking this knightly position in relation to Maria, and if you do watch the video for the latest 31st or 11th September 1907 diary entry, you will get that illusion. All right, so there are two things that he has to take into account in looking for a bride. One is that public opinion, in the sense of those Russian monarchists specifically, or possibly even the broader public within Russia, what they would accept in a ruler or a head of state or a tsar, what kind of woman they would consider appropriate and what kind they would consider disqualifying. So he mentions Misha, meaning the Tsar's younger brother, Grand Duke Mikhail Alexandrovich, who was killed by the Bolsheviks, but years before the revolution, he had married morganatically against the Tsar's, against the emperor's will, and been banished from Russia, as had Dmitri's own father. He'd married a woman from a good family, but a bourgeois family, not even an aristocrat. She was a lawyer's wife, I believe. Or was her husband in the... No, she was a lawyer's daughter. She came from a family of jurists, and her husband was an officer in Misha's regiment. All right, and so, you know, that in the final instance, when Nicholas abdicated, he decided to also abdicate on behalf of his son, who was so ill, and instead to name Misha his heir, despite the morganatic wife. And if Misha had decided to accept that role, then the public may well have accepted his wife. I would tend to think that they would have. They would be more scandalized, I think, by the fact that she was a divorcee than the fact that she was from a bourgeois family. Now, Boris in the Russian pronunciation, he married his ballerina mistress, his mistress of long standing. Very quickly after the revolution, he married her. So both this bourgeois and this demi-monde background are things that Dmitri is kind of saying, well, I'm not going to go that far. But on the other hand, even if my bride comes from another class and another sort of station in life, it's still, if she's not a princess, it's still problematic. He needs to marry a princess. And honestly, you would think there were plenty of eligible princesses, unless it was the case that parents did not want their princess daughters to marry a Grand Duke in exile and a Grand Duke without money and possibly without a future as a royal. So that might have complicated things. His sister had kind of even been trying to play matchmaker with one of the Greek princesses. And he just wasn't interested in that. He did, toss around the idea a little. She was all right as far as he was concerned. But yeah, anyway, I guess there are so few available princesses that he's just given up that idea. So he's thinking, yes, my wife will be morganatic, but she needs to be from a good family. He uses English here. He says, providing that my future wife be of a good family, and she needs to be rich. And, don't rush to condemn him on this. He really wasn't wrong. He needed to find a wife who had some money. She didn't need to be, as Audrey was, fantastically wealthy, but he knew perfectly well that he was not in a position and perhaps would not be in a position, even in later years, to support a wife unless she herself brought wealth to the marriage. And so, he does need to consider that. And in the next video, in tomorrow's video, he's going to talk in terms of his own conscience with respect to that practical need that he acknowledges. It interests me that he uses the word Groschen. That is not my translation. That's a word he uses. And what is a Groschen? I think there were groschens in various different European countries. I think some of them were maybe even valuable, but of course he's talking about something, a coin of no value, like a penny. Okay, old boy. I know there was something else I wanted to talk about here. Yes. going back to the theme of the day, beginning with the 1907 video, where the theme of the day is very definitely poetry and the poetic way of looking at life. Dmitri says, and it's not particularly poetic language, but he says, I have a feeling that if Russia really wants me, she will take me. I love that. He's using she, as we often do for our own countries, although nobody ever calls the U.S. a she, right? We might refer to Russia and some other countries as a she, but countries really have both masculine and feminine. Mythology isn't the right word, but you get what I mean. So he's talking to Russia in the sense of Mother Russia. And so she's the most important wife, isn't she? Yes, he needs to marry an actual wife and not an abstract idea of a wife. But Russia is, she's the, if not the wife, then at least the mother who needs to approve of the bride. Let's put it that way. And Dmitri's saying, if she really wants me, she will take me. So reverting to that fatalistic philosophy of his, where if it's meant to be, it will happen no matter what. No matter if I become a shopkeeper and my wife is, from some petty bourgeois family. All right, well, do come back for the next one and find out what our friend thinks about marrying under the influence of strictly practical considerations. Bearing in mind, of course, that this will soon become a moot question because he'll be running off with Coco. All right, see you next time.